After dinner, they work diligently on setting up all of the monitors. Tom slips away and heads to the broom closet, where he has hidden Jill. He opens the door. Jill? Jill? He starts to panic a little. Jill! What? She says, appearing behind him, coming in the door. Man, you scared me. Where were you? Trying to find some food. Look, you gotta stay in here. No telling what will happen if these guys find you. Whatever. Now, as a scientist, I strongly wish you would reconsider killing this thing. I mean, just think of what we could learn. Jill stops eating and glares at Tom while slowly pulling out her revolver. Okay, never mind. It was just a thought. But if you do want to kill it, you're gonna need more than that. Jill looks down at the revolver. You're right. I'll search the ship for something else. Jill starts rooting through the broom closet for weapons to defend herself with on her expedition. So, do you have a boyfriend or something like that? 'Cause, Jill completely ignores him. Yeah, you're busy. We'll talk later. Tom catches up with the rest of the team in the wheelhouse just as they're finishing setting up the equipment. It's 10 o'clock, and we're online. You'll be able to find our octopus with this stuff? Well, in a limited range. The ocean is a big place, and our range is so small. It's kinda like finding a needle in a haystack. There's just no way we can guarantee that Akira interrupts. I got something. What? Are you sure it's our... Just then, Greg hits a big red button on the control panel, and a boat-wide alarm goes off. He picks up the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, we've spotted our octopus. All crew to the top deck. There's a flurry of activity as the aged passengers scurry up to the top deck with their cameras and camcorders, some in their nightgowns and pajamas. Captain Griggs, we don't even know if this is an octopus. We just set up the equipment. It's her, all right. There's something coming off the port side, Doug. Port side, men! Some of the passengers are complaining that there's no lights to take pictures, so Griggs orders his men to shine spotlights off the port side. The passengers all rush to the port side, and the boat starts to list heavily. Ballast, boys, ballast! Doug can see the crew desperately trying to move heavy crates on the top deck towards the starboard side. Jim! Doug and he run out of the wheelhouse and down the stairs to the top deck to help out. Doug and Jim get on the working end of the crates and push as hard as they can. As Doug and two of the deckhands get the momentum of their crate going, it slides and slams into the railing of the boat. From under the tarp on the top of the crate, an old World War II torpedo falls out, hits the deck in front of their feet, and the propeller starts spinning wildly. Everyone ducks for cover, but nothing happens. A few of the crew quickly throw the torpedo overboard. One of the bigger crewmen puffs out his chest and advances on Doug threateningly. Doug isn't sure if it's because the man blames him on the accident, or because Doug stumbled on a shady secret. The two are interrupted by shouting and commotion on the port side. There it is! Someone shouts. Everyone rushes over to the side of the boat. It's huge! Doug and Jim rush to the side of the boat and peer over to see a dark orange shadow appear. Near the center is a glowing round shape. Is that an eye? It must be photoluminescent. The passengers are snapping away pictures like mad. The noise of whirs, clicks, and gasps is almost deafening. Just then, the shadow gets darker and the shape appears to submerge back into the depths. It's just when the passengers are letting out sighs of disappointment that they find themselves rushed by the crew. As if by some hidden command, the crewmen start grabbing passengers by the ankles and tipping them overboard. Other crew grab the tourists from behind and toss them in. People kick and scream while being grabbed by the arms and feet and are thrown overboard like flailing sacks of potatoes. The deck is chaos. As people struggle and paddle in the water, one by one they start being sucked under by the feet with unbelievable speed. 1 second they're there, and then they're gone. The shadow and eye reappear and enormous tentacles start emerging from the water. Doug looks over to see 4 crewmen trying to drag Jim off the boat. He has a crewman on each limb and he's fighting desperately to get free. Doug runs over and starts punching them away. Jim gets free when he hears Sarah screaming his name. Sarah is being carried off by a large deckhand. Doug and Jim tackle him and get Sarah to her feet. Tentacles start whizzing through the air, picking up people and sucking them underwater, only to be shoved into an enormous beak that grinds them to shreds. Doug hears Akira call him from the top of the stairs by the wheelhouse. Doug looks up, but in a split second, Akira is snatched by a tentacle and taken underwater. Doug, not knowing what to do, sees a fire axe on the wall, breaks the glass, and pulls it out. Doug runs over to a tentacle on deck, swings it, and buries it deep inside. All at once, the crew members scream out in pain with an unearthly howl. Doug uses this precious moment to gather Jim, Sarah, and Tom together. He sees the cook from an open doorway beckoning them. They follow him down into the ship. The crew are coming to and start chasing them like ravenous zombies. Tom trips and falls on the deck. He can't get up in time before he is torn apart and carried off by the crew. Doug tries to go back for him, but the cook grabs him by the collar, throws him into a walk-in refrigerator, slamming the steel door shut and locking it from the inside just before the crew gets there. The crew is beating and scratching at the door. Now, Jim, Doug, Sarah, and the chef are stuck in the middle of the ocean, locked in a refrigerator, on a boat full of mindless zombie crewmen, with an enormous psychic octopus in the water, trying to eat them. The three try to calm themselves down, while the chef doesn't seem to be fazed by the experience. The door of the fridge is shaking, but holding steady as the crewmen under control of the octopus try to break it down in synchronized bursts. The chef, Jim, and Doug brace the door for each hit. Suddenly the slams against the door stop. The three wait in silence, trying to hear what they can on the other side. Silence is interrupted as Sarah jumps onto Jim's back like a rabid dog, biting, scratching, and clawing at him. She is screaming hysterically, yelling phrases like, "Must feed it! Kill the deserters!" The chef and Doug wrestle her off Jim and tie her to a shelving unit. "She's under its spell. It gets into their minds." Jim is tending to a rather vicious bite from Sarah. "I don't believe this." "Believe? I didn't know until tonight, but I've seen the crew deteriorate. The longer it's been around them, the deeper hold it has on their minds." "How come then it hasn't affected you?" The chef shrugs. "Well, we've got to come up with a plan." They stand in silence, thinking for a while. "What about this? We'll wait until we don't hear any noise." As Doug speaks, Sarah's voice matches up with his word for word. "Then we'll pop out of the fridge and fight our way into the wheelhouse. We can lock ourselves in there and sail the ship to shore." No way. Did she just read your mind? "No, the beast did. The Kraken." "So there's no way we can think of a plan," says Sarah. Her voice slowly changes as she speaks, into an unworldly noise. "You are my prisoners. I will eat you. You will pay for your insolence, Douglas Jennings. I will swallow you whole and digest you slowly." "Who are you? Are you the octopus?" Octopus is your word. I am your god." The three stand around in silence for a long time. Finally, after what seems to be an eternity, the chef looks up and starts scrounging around the shelves. He pulls foil off the chilled meat and starts doubling it up. Jim and Doug look at each other with concern. Then, without saying a word, he wraps it around the men's heads, and Sarah's as well. "Chef?" The chef knocks on his head. "Aluminum plate." "Aluminum? We can't all come from rich countries." Jim apologizes. "Hey, maybe that guy outside my apartment isn't as crazy as I give him credit for." They wake up Sarah, who seems to be unaffected by the octopus now that she's sporting her fancy new headwear. "What's happening?" "We were just trying to figure that out." "Alright, now we can come up with a plan. First of all, we need to figure out a way out of this room." The only opening they find is a motor and a fan for the fridge. They take it apart piece by piece until they make a small hole. It looks to them like Sarah and maybe Doug could fit through the hole, but Chef and Jim are too big. Now, with at least some options open to them, they start to come up with a plan. "If we can get into the wheelhouse, we could patch our sonar to the ship's electrical grid, boost the signal, and hope it drowns out the beast." "Yeah, that just might send it running." "How so?" "It would be like screaming in its ear so loud that it would do anything to get away from it. Then it would most likely disrupt the crew, too." "That's great, but how do we get out of this room?" She's right, we're gonna need everyone to get to the wheelhouse. "I think I know. You have to get out and make a distraction to get the crew away from the door, while the lady knocks on it to make sure the coast is clear." Doug takes another look at the hole. "I don't know. It looks like a pretty tight fit for me." "No problem," says the chef, and pulls from the shelf a gallon can of lard. Doug winces, but nods his head in agreement. After they lather up Doug, he grabs some more foil and puts it in his pocket. Just before they go, Jim pulls Sarah aside. "Be careful, huh?" She's taken aback by the affection he's showing. It's only now that she realizes that he has feelings for her. She smiles, kisses him on the cheek, and heads up through the hole. They have a little more trouble getting Doug up, since he's covered in lard, but they finally get him up and through. "Let me go first," Doug whispers. He starts sneaking into the other room. On the other side of the room, there is a crewman with his back towards Doug. As quietly as he can, Doug pulls out a piece of foil and shapes it into a hat. He then slowly advances on the crew member. Doug is trying not to breathe as he gets right behind the man and in one quick motion puts the hand on him. The crewman spins around, clocks Doug in the face, and he drops to the floor.